Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Jeff Stevenson. I am the director and curator for the Nathan Manilow Sculpture Park at Governor State University and also the Visual Arts Gallery. And we're happy to be the host of the Illinois Community College Juried exhibition. We've been doing it for quite a few years now, probably 12 or 15 if I would stop and count. And it's always one of our favorite shows. We get to see all of the new work that's being done by all the students around the state of Illinois. And we have such a diversity of students at all of the different institutions that are represented. So we were, of course, worried that we weren't going to get to see all of the beautiful artwork this year because of the pandemic. So we were very excited, even with the limitations that it presents, to be able to do this as a virtual exhibition. And I'm glad that many of the artists that are in the show are able to join us today. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Rebecca Siefert. She is our faculty of art history here at Governor State University. I've worked with her for a few years now, and her devotion to the students and to exhibitions like this is incredible. I really appreciate all the hard work, Becky, that you put into this and the way you brought it together. I think that your work has really enhanced the exhibit and presented it really nicely.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for that warm welcome, Jeff. And thank you everyone for showing up, for being here. I know it is not ideal circumstances, but it's good to see everyone here. And we're trying to just keep it as close to normal as it might be in any given year. So you can see I'm in the gallery here, here to talk about the work. So I just want to start by saying a huge thank you to Jeff, also Sherry Dino, and especially Heather Cox, for all of her hard work in getting this show organized and corresponding with you all, and also curating the show in the virtual gallery. This was a really big undertaking, and it's really not easy to navigate a new digital platform like this, especially while managing other art gallery duties and her own grad classes and life on top of it all. So I don't know if Heather's here, but thank you, Heather, for all your hard work. So on to the work. And also, if I start kind of like Jeff mentioned, the bandwidth, I have the virtual gallery open, and we're going to go in there together in a second when I announce the winners and talk about them. So if at any point I start slowing down, let me know in the chat box and I can pause and let my computer kind of catch up a little bit. Okay. So on to the work. So it was really a pleasure to see so much creativity and so much interesting work being made during this really strange and challenging year. It was also an unusual experience for me to select and judge works in a totally virtual environment. I know that there's a lot that we kind of miss out on when we're just looking at an image on a screen as compared to seeing a physical art object in person. As usual, I had a very difficult time choosing the winners because there's just so many pieces that I thought were really impressive and reflected the common images and feelings associated with the past year. So like seeing figure drawing models wearing masks and some struggles with mental health. A lot of like really beautiful, quiet, yet unsettling interior scenes and some small moments of joy and beauty within the really dark times of the past year. I want to talk a little bit about some of the factors that I considered in the selection process. I would say first I considered skill and craftsmanship, or at least as much craftsmanship as one can tell from a photograph, as well as the concept and artistic voice. So work that clearly has a point of view and personal meaning, yet leaves room for viewers to kind of project their own meaning onto the piece as well. I looked for works that seemed to reflect the times that we're living in, but maybe in not always such a literal way, but maybe through metaphors or like a feeling of absence. Another consideration that was different this year, as you can imagine, as opposed to past years, is that the photograph of the work had to represent the artwork in the best light, both literally and figuratively. So this really made it kind of a challenge for folks who typically work in 3D. But I thought you all did a really excellent job overall of showcasing your art in a professional manner, and I'm really proud of all your hard work. I think you should be as well. So without further ado, I'd like to announce this year's winners and speak a little bit about each piece. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and take you into the virtual exhibit. So if you don't mind, bear with me for a moment while I do that. Can everyone see the screen all right? All right. So let me go ahead and back out a little bit here. So I'm going to start with the Best in Show. The Best in Show award goes to After the Party by Victoria Gomez of Morton College. Virtual clapping. So this piece was a bit of a dark horse. It's a pretty deceptively simple image. There's not a whole lot of excitement going on, but maybe for that reason, it just seemed to kind of capture the mood of the past year for me. This kind of feeling of isolation and loneliness, also the quality of light and the color palette, which reminded me of a Dutch Baroque painting, which tend to kind of emphasize these quiet moments of reflection. Just these really soft and delicate forms and shadows that rendered the photograph almost like a hyper-realistic painting. It kept drawing me back in, and I was trying to figure out before I looked at the medium, is this a photograph or not? So it has a kind of eerie quality, which I think is due in part to the lack of human presence. There's no one that we can see in the composition here, but also due to the tension seen in that minimalist composition. So we've got the balloon, which I imagine is maybe being held up by either a thin piece of tape or maybe just static electricity. And then you have the streamer just kind of barely pinned to the wall. But then I'm wondering, like, is there somebody lurking in the shadows? Because our vantage point seems kind of high, like there might be someone just out of frame. We have the contrast of dark and light, subtlety of color, the attention to the edge, like on the left-hand corner, where you can kind of see something just peeking in. And then this delicate line of the streamer twisting across in a gentle diagonal. And the atmosphere it created, it was just, to me, a very impressive, yet understated work. So congratulations to Victoria. All right, moving right along. So the next artist had two works in the show, and I was drawn to both works, and they're actually both on this wall here. The Curator's Choice Award goes to Ashley Nunoz from Moraine Valley Community College. And the piece that I awarded this prize to was this one over here, although this is also her work on the right side. So I'm just going to zoom in on that piece. Oops, looks like we lost it a little bit. Okay, so this piece is called MF Mud by Ashley Nunoz. And this piece and the one nearby to the right, as I pointed out, they both struck me because of their bold use of color and their confident brushwork that seemed to convey the confidence of the sitter. It's also kind of refreshing to see faces without masks on, I'm not gonna lie. But it was this one in particular that I kept coming back to because of the smart 3/4 pose, which animates the composition. And we might think of some of the most famous portraits in art history, like the Mona Lisa or some of Rembrandt's self-portraits, which are also in that 3/4 pose as well. I also like the captivating facial expression and the expert handling of paint that were used to create this portrait that just seems kind of like it was created with such ease. I really enjoy the contrast between some areas, like in the fabric, where it's a little bit more refined. I'm like hesitant to zoom in too far because I feel like I tripped up the matrix for a second there. And other areas like you have in the hands, I felt like those were really interesting as a contrast because they're constructed with broader patches of color, kind of harkening back to Matisse or Cezanne or other modern painters. And I thought that it really animated the surface of the painting. So that combined with this kind of like ruby red halo, the figure just seems to kind of radiate. So I really enjoyed that piece as well. So congratulations, Ashley. All right, back up. Okay, so finally we have 2 merit awards. The first merit award goes to this piece. This is called Dog Tag by Linnea or Linnea, I'm sorry, Sardina from the College of DuPage. So for this piece, I was really drawn to this work because of the really beautiful play of light across the rich metallic surfaces. And the way that these tags kind of create a kind of cloud-like form or maybe rain. There's also something kind of disorienting about the piece because the image is cropped so that our field of vision here, I'm trying to zoom in a little bit more here. The field of vision is limited and we can't really see anything beyond just this field of dog tags hanging from some sort of unseen apparatus above. And because of our vantage point, we're looking up at these, which is, I thought, a classical compositional strategy. We've seen this throughout art history, and it's used to suggest respect and reverence. So to me, it read both literal and abstract in different ways. I noticed that it was dog tags, but I didn't notice it at first. It took, looking at the title actually for me to understand what I was looking at. And then I started thinking about this as a tribute to veterans or maybe a memorial to those whose lives were lost in conflict. But then again, upon reflection, I started thinking about the current context and COVID, of course, and different kinds of sacrifice and loss that have taken place over the last year. And I started thinking about this as a memorial to the countless people who suffered or died of COVID or lost a loved one to police brutality or to gun violence, all sorts of different things. And so that for me, the overall effect was one of a beautiful memorial, and I found it very moving. So congratulations, Linnea or Linnea. Last but not least, let's see here. The final merit award goes to another work of photography, and it's this piece here. So this is called Sundown Landscape, and it's by Victor Barranco from Morton College. I was drawn to this piece from the get-go for a few reasons. And it's always kind of interesting to kind of like put the reasoning behind why you're drawn to a work into words, because sometimes it's just something that's kind of, it strikes you and you're not quite sure why. So part of the process of being a juror for me is it's helpful to kind of like, give some sort of like reasoning behind your immediate reaction and why you're drawn to a piece. So for me, it was a few reasons. First, the sunset is just such a classic subject matter in art history. But in this case, we're not looking at a traditional landscape exactly. We're looking at a parking lot. So it looks like it might be, I don't know if it's the parking lot for the metro station. I was thinking maybe based on that building on the left. But it's clearly a suburban area where you might imagine there's plenty of room for people to spread out as opposed to in the city. Instead, there's not this sense that we're spread out though, because it's crowded. So we're looking at a parking lot that's full of crowded with cars. So that also creates an interesting juxtaposition then between these machines, which you might imagine are even still radiating heat from their engines, but then contrasted with the nature in the background, including the white hot image of the sun there. But what I found really impressive is just the level of detail that was achieved in these really dark areas. So you have a kind of flattening effect of this field of rich orange and yellow in the sky, and also the silhouette of the trees in the building. But then you have so much depth and detail in the cars in the middle ground and foreground. So I thought it showed technical skill for sure, but then in terms of concept and meaning, I also saw this as a piece that's very dualistic in a lot of ways. It's flattened in some areas, but also shows extreme detail and depth. It's nature, but it's also man-made machines. There's no people visible, but it's very crowded. It's extremely bright, but also extremely dark. And it could be a sunset, but it could also be a sunrise. And so it's either the end of an era, if we're thinking about some of the meaning behind it, or maybe the beginning of a new one, especially as the weather starts warming up, so exciting, and we start to see a glimmer of hope that maybe COVID is starting to get under control. So to me, it represented this kind of dualism, or maybe even a tension again, but also a sense of hope. So congratulations, Victor. And I know it's so weird because we can't hear the applause, but just everyone know that we're all applauding you quietly in our own homes. Congratulations to all the winners again. And I just want to extend an invitation also to all students here to reach out to me if you want to chat more about your work. We can, obviously, it's a little bit of a unique setting here, but I'm happy to chat over email or again on Zoom privately, or who knows, maybe one day in person. So thank you all.
Thank you, Becky. That was really terrific. I loved hearing your commentary about the works. It makes me see everything in kind of a new way. And it's a lot of fun. So I wanted to remind everyone that this virtual exhibit continues through this month and next, depending on when our subscription officially ends. So please leverage it to let your fans, family, and friends know about your work and come in and see it in this kind of setting. I think that we do learn a lot about ourselves as artists when we put our work into this kind of arena and we see what other artists are doing and see our work in conversation with other works. So take advantage of that and really, you know, feel free to share this while it's online. Did anyone, I'm checking the chat. Did we see anything else going on that people wanted to ask questions about? Did you, Rebecca, I'd invite you to maybe show groupings that were particularly interesting to you in the gallery if folks are interested in seeing that. That might be a nice thing to do, and then we'll wrap up in a few minutes.
It's always so interesting to try to navigate this too with Zoom going. Okay, so I'm gonna make that go away. So I thought Heather did a really, I mean, first of all, just the work is beautiful, but then Heather did an amazing job trying to find ways that different types of work might correlate with one another, whether it's based on, you know, color palette, like over here. I thought this was a really beautiful kind of abstract centerpiece, surrounded then by photographs and more realistic work. We also had an interesting pairing over here. Let's see if I can zoom in. Of a couple of different abstract photographs, digital photographs. So Pastel Prairie here on the left, I thought was a really interesting piece. It kind of gives you a, I don't know, maybe like a Technicolor kind of like television screen of a landscape. So again, kind of seeing nature in these different ways was interesting, especially during COVID, where it's like we're all so anxious to get back outside and enjoy nature as the weather's warming up. And then shared with this kinetic potential, another photograph that was a little bit abstracted in different ways, and I thought made for a really interesting pairing over there. There were also some great figure drawings on this wall here, yes. I thought this was a great wall as well. We have some works like this one. I would say a lot of the figure drawing actually, and I think this is most likely having something to do with COVID. You know, it's just so funny, or it's dark humor. I wouldn't say it's funny, haha, but kind of interesting to see the figure masked in some cases. I can go over to this piece here. I'll return to that one in a moment. The light infused figure, to see the figure wearing a COVID mask in some cases, or in other cases, the masks that we wear on a daily basis as we're trying to kind of make our way in this strange world. And then in other cases, like in Steve Barclay's Pandemic Portrait Covered Man, where the entire figure is then covered too. Again, it's a little bit of a dark humor take on the figure. Turn myself around. And then we had some other figurative works. Like over here, we took a look at some of these pieces by Ashley, but then there were other ones like this figure drawing, which I was also drawn to, that kind of presents the body in a bit of a contorted way, and there are disfigurations and maybe strange proportions that make the figure, which normally we understand, well, this is proper proportions. There are areas that are kind of like squished or pulled or pushed in different ways. So abstracting and distorting the figure in a way that maybe reveals some sort of like, you know, underlying mental confusion or tension or something like that. I thought that that was a really interesting piece too. This was a really great pairing too. We have Allison's In Profile, which is kind of like, to me, it looked like an Edward Hopper painting in a photograph form, next to this piece here. So two domestic interiors of women in these kind of reflective, contemplative spaces. And then paired again with this piece over here. So we have a lot of these, like I was saying, domestic interiors featuring the artists themselves in these kind of quiet moments and playing with shadow, playing with mood and lighting. And I thought that these were all really, they provided a really interesting pairing as well. It's clear that we've had a lot of time to reflect on ourselves and our immediate surroundings in the past year. Here we're getting over into a space with a lot of more abstract works, some abstract paintings, like on the right here. We have this piece in the center with this really interesting kind of fresh color palette. I like that use of spearmint and how that's played against the kind of like orangish, pinkish kind of fleshy color, and the push and pull and attenuation of forms that seems kind of like biological. You know, I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking at, but it seems kind of like maybe related to reproductive organs or something like that. Hopefully I'm not reading too much into it. But that's the beauty of abstract work too, are works that allude to things we've seen in the real world, but yet are distorted in some way, and that helps open them up to different meanings to be projected onto them by the viewer. And then next to this piece, again, so I see how Heather's kind of playing off of color palette in some ways. This is folded pictures, colored clips, and White Beauty magazine images. So it was also great to see different types of mediums at play here, and this use of collage in digital form. This was, to me, because I study architecture, I was seeing this as almost like an architectural plan that we're seeing from this kind of like axonometric view, kind of like from a distance a bit, looking down into a space. And then to see that this was made using Photoshop, but also kind of alludes to beauty magazine images, I thought that that was very interesting. And then it again played really nicely in terms of color palette and abstraction against this work over here, which again, I was also drawn to. There were a lot of really interesting works by Dakota McDorman called Shattered Spectrum, using colored pencil. So this feeling that we're kind of like being drawn in different directions. And then it also had a kind of architectural or architectonic kind of feeling to it as well. And the color palette was very bright and translucent and playful. And then on the opposite wall, I love these architectural details. They're trying to make this feel like a real gallery space here. And on this wall was where we saw some of the more kind of like, I would say, psychological and inward looking works that combine levels of abstraction with figuration. So like this piece, which I thought was just so jarring, Overgrown by Ashley Nunoz. So this piece was just very kind of like disturbing, obviously, and at the same time you have that play between the beauty of the flowers, which are at the same time also, they seem to be wilting and dying, combined with this very psychological portrait of a person who's clearly been through something here. India ink on paper. And then this is also the wall where we had some of our three-dimensional works, like this image of Medusa, which I thought was a very smart play on Heather's part in terms of pairing those two right next to each other, where you have an image of a woman, a female figure who's kind of like, her head is being kind of like infiltrated by these other natural forms that do not belong there. That I thought was a really interesting piece to also pair with Alexa's other piece, Resting with Flowers, which again, it seems kind of like a level of psychological introspection going on in this small piece made of ceramic. And then these three pairings on the left side of the wall here, I was also drawn to. I really love this piece by Katie Gertz, Night Gardening, which is made out of some unusual materials like denim thread, wire, and aluminum foil. And I just saw this kind of like the buds, which if it's night gardening, listen, and I don't know a ton about gardening. I think I'm the only one who lives in this area and teaches at this school who doesn't have their own garden. But I was thinking like, okay, at night, the buds close up, or maybe there's this kind of sense that things are going to sleep. And so it reminded me of this day and age where everyone's kind of like staying home, you're closed up, or most people are. And again, a kind of like inward looking or introspection. And it's also a little bit disturbing. It's a little unsettling. She's made something that is typically like blooming and beautiful and natural. Suddenly it looks a little like something is not quite right here and unnatural, and using materials like denim. So I thought that was very interesting. And to pair that with these more organic forms on the left here, like this other piece also by Katie Gertz of a Venus figure. I'd be curious to hear more from her about Russian olive tree and how that is to work with. I thought this was a really beautiful sinuous depiction of Venus, a Venus 2.0, I guess, or a Venus 2020, I suppose. And then to pair that with this kind of like oceanic underwater form by Grant Sigmund, I thought was also a great little pairing. Now let me just back up and see, was there any section that I haven't looked at yet? I'm going to do a little on each wall here. There were some that just, I mean, made me kind of laugh too, like this chicken or turkey, or baby. Convergence. This was such a funny little piece made out of clay and oil paint. You know, seeing works like these, I always wish that I could have like a little spiel or a little paragraph about, you know, the thinking behind each work, just to kind of get a little bit of insight on where this idea came from and how they arrived at the process and all that good stuff. So I thought that one was very interesting as well. I can't actually see the chat box when I'm in here, so I don't know if there were any other requests or any other works that Jeff or anyone else would like to take a look at while we're in here.
I've been keeping an eye on the chat, and everybody's just swooning and loving seeing all of the artwork up close like this. It's a really nice way to get around the gallery. And I also welcome everyone, if you do want to unmute your microphone, you can feel free to talk now. If we talk over each other, it won't really hurt anything at this point. So feel free to jump in.
I'll keep wandering around the gallery in the meantime.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to see like the artists that you, like that last one, the Convergence, was that the title of it? If that artist is here, maybe they could make a comment about it.
Oops, sorry. Broken the matrix.
Stepped outside for a minute.
I guess. Yeah, is Sharon here?
Yes, I'm right here.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Sharon. You're more than welcome to talk about this piece if you'd like, but no pressure.
Well, our assignment was to morph one thing into another. And so I had a little baby doll, and my instructor, Chris Birdie, he was encouraging me, and we came across this idea of this convergence of putting these two things together, the chicken and this baby. But I found the most fun is, at first it's shocking, but people come up with so many stories about it, their own interpretations. And so that's why it's given me a lot of pleasure just to show people this piece.
So when you say clay and oil paint, could you explain that? What are we looking at?
Well, I constructed it out of clay, and it was fired. And then decided to put oil paint on it. And I did about 7 layers, all different colors, so that it had this fleshy look. And
it's interesting because the way that so it's a 3D object.
Yes.
And the way it's photographed and the beautiful lighting on it made me wonder if it was an oil painting.
Oh yeah, just exactly looking at it right there, it does look like it could be that.
Yeah.
I photographed it in a light box. It had light all surrounding it.
It's an interesting way to present the work.
Thank you.
Yeah, there were several works in the show where I had to keep looking back at the medium because I felt like many of these, the lighting really made them look like they could possibly be oil paintings, excuse me, like this piece over here, as I was mentioning before. I really thought this was just like a hyper realistic oil painting at first. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that, Sharon. I was so curious about that piece.
Thank you for asking. It is unusual.
Interesting to hear kind of like whether there's an assignment behind them or not, you know, too. There was another piece, I'm trying to remember where exactly that was that I had a question about. And if any other questions come up in the meantime, feel free to just chime in as well. It was these two over here in the corner. This one, Delicatas Bite Me, by Guillermo Pimentel. I don't know if Guillermo is here, but I just know Morton College is putting forward some really interesting works. Those two of the photographs that won awards, and then this piece. I was just kind of curious what the assignment was. Is this, I don't know if this is like a band name or I don't know. Is Guillermo here? I actually ended up Googling delicates because I was curious what that was. I think it was a Polish word? I don't know. But I thought that was a really great poster design, and it also paired nicely with this play on Kiss in this poster. Of Cars by Dakota McDorman. And this was an interesting one too, because I thought maybe this was a digital image or maybe it was colored pencil or something like that, but it actually also incorporated wallpaper and acrylic paint. So that kind of piqued my curiosity. And again, just kind of wondering what was the assignment exactly here? I'd love to hear the story behind this one. I don't know if Dakota is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Dakota. I don't know if, again, not to put you on the spot or anything, but I'd love to hear more about this piece if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the assignment was, my teacher just had like these wallpaper books and he wanted us to pick one and then just kind of paint on top of it and alter it in any way that we wanted.
And so was the wallpaper the cards?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then that's some intense wallpaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was also around the time I was going to be seeing Kiss in concert, like in 2019. So.
Oh wow. I was gonna say, are you a big Kiss fan? I'm assuming so.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Cool.
Yeah, that one brought a smile to my face when I saw it. Were there any other works that someone wanted to maybe ask the artist about and see if the artist is here, hear a little bit more about the story behind it? I know I mentioned this piece before by Allison. I don't know if Allison's here, but this was another one that stood out to me. And again, I know I mentioned Edward Hopper. It has that really kind of like quiet sense of introspection. And so I'd be kind of curious to hear, yeah, McHenry County College. They and Morton College had some strong entries. I mean, they all had strong entries, but I don't know if Allison is here.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Is everything working? Okay, cool. This, honestly, I saw the light coming through the window in my bedroom and I knew that I had to do something with it. It was really strong. And I noticed that if I stood in that spot in particular, it was kind of like I was right in between the lamp and the shadow. I turned the lamp on and I just thought, I was actually thinking of Edward Hopper with the light too. I really like that strong kind of light. And I am happy that I was able to capture this at the moment that I did, because things kind of can come and go, especially when you're working with natural light.
Yeah, very true. And is this looked like also the lamp seemed kind of like vintage or something like that. So that was also intriguing. It had that Hopper-esque feel, not just because of the light and, you know, the posture of the woman looking towards the window and the strong shadow, but also it just had a kind of like vintage feel to it too. Is that like an oil lamp? I can't tell.
It's actually just a regular lamp. Like there's like a light bulb in it and everything. It's just it has that kind of look on the outside of it. So it is. We just kind of found those lamps, and I'm really happy that we did. So yeah, they're very beautiful, especially the flower pattern on the outside of them.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, it has the feeling of being a moment and sort of found by accident, but also very well composed and carefully selected. So it's walking that line between the random and planned.
That is my favorite way to take pictures. So, thank you.
Spoken like a true artist. Gonna mosey on over here. This was another one. I didn't discuss this one yet, but I really liked this little photograph, and I'd be kind of curious to hear the story behind this one too. Like exactly where this person was when they took the photograph. Is this in Chicago? I don't know if Ben Gradle, if Ben is here.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello.
Hello. That was taken right outside O'Hare Airport. So like, just like some people like to train spot, I like to airplane spot. And I listen to like a radio to figure out which kind of runway they're taking off or landing on. And then I park my car like on a weekend, some business lot, and just photograph things. And there's like a really neat looking billboard. You can't really see it with the picture, but it says "Worried Jesus has offers security" on it. And then that combined with the graffiti, I thought really fit well together.
Yeah, most definitely. It has kind of like a filmic quality to me, and part of it is maybe the orientation of that landscape orientation, but also the black and white quality, and kind of that way that you captured a moment in time. It really reminded me of a still from a film. And yeah, the play of the billboard with that building to the left, and then the way that you've captured the plane right as it's kind of intersecting with that line from the power, power line. I thought that was really great.
Thank you.
Jeff, I'm thinking maybe it would be a good idea to also hear from the winners if they're here.
Sure, good idea.
Let me bring us back to these pieces. Sundown Landscape was by Victor Barranco, if I'm pronouncing that right, from Wharton College. Is Victor here? Perhaps not. Well, that will be an exciting email at least. And our best in show, which was Victoria Gomez. Is Victoria here? No pressure, of course. And let's see. Linnea. Is Linnea or Linnea present?
Yeah, it's Linnea. I'm here.
Linnea. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really know what to say because like the story behind this taking this picture isn't very exciting. I was in like Chicago and there was a display at it was the public library, and then I was on the escalator and I thought it looked cool, so I took the picture. Then I got home and edited it. It wasn't nearly as exciting as you made it out to be.
Well, it's like, you know, and sometimes the best, most exciting artworks are captured in a more unexciting you know, just having the eye to see that that's going to make for a great image, you know, and just getting your camera out really quickly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that it also speaks to the way that artists often work intuitively and then figure it out later. And so now that you've heard Dr. Becky's remarks about this, it might train your eye to find more things like this, or examples or metaphors for things that you have interest in. And so that's how an artistic voice can grow, through your own work.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, excellent work. Love the photograph. I'm glad that you noticed that and had the forethought to get the camera out in that moment. And last but not least, I'd like to...
Did she speak already?
Yeah, Ashley, would you like to say a few words about your work? I want to know who MF Mudd is.
Yeah, I don't think she's on here anymore. It looks like she's not.
Oh, okay. I wonder if MF Mudd is in the audience. Whoever her model was. And since Heather was just talking, not to put Heather on the spot, but Heather, you did an amazing job curating the show and getting everyone organized and getting all the images together and sharing them and communicating. So huge shout out to you for all your work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was wondering if maybe you could swing back by Stephen Barclay's work, the one that you had showcased with the sheet over him.
Oh, yes.
The figure.
Is this back here? I think so. Yes.
Yeah, so I think that it's interesting to know kind of the backstory on some of his work. I think he's also not on anymore, but he had mentioned when he submitted that all of his work was done like right when the pandemic started, and his figure drawing teacher had them like stuff things to create their own figures and then create their work. And I think that's interesting to note that, you know, on top of everything else, with how well they're rendered and just the very interesting, you know, kind of masked, like mysterious thing that's happening. He had another piece too that was submitted, and they're interesting, you know, to look at and to kind of tell its own story, I think.
So was there actually a human being underneath here and then he just stuffed on top of the human being? Do you know?
I don't know, because the other one that he had was very evident that it was like a stuffed pillowcase almost. And I'm wondering if this one is as well. That's why I was hoping he would still be on here. But even if you look at like the little glove, it almost looks like that's stuffed, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Just a really creative way to work during this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, one of the overarching themes of this exhibit too is just getting creative with the means that you have available to you. And I know, I mean, I understand that some of these works were made prior to the COVID pandemic, but it's amazing how easily we can read into them given the context of what's going on right now. So even some of them that had nothing to do with COVID, I was starting to like apply those kinds of meanings to them.
For sure.
Well, I feel like, you know, we've had a great conversation. We've gone for pretty much a full hour, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. As I said, the exhibit will continue to be on display virtually, so please send people to go view it. I want to give a big round of applause to our esteemed juror, Dr. Rebecca Siefert. Yay! You're really like my definition of an ideal colleague. We work together on so many projects and you always are like, yes, I'll do that, and yes, I'll help, and then you do all the work, and I always get all the credit. But I'm always happy to share the credit. You get a lot of credit for the work you do. So thank you very much for your hard work on this. You did a terrific job, and I'll also thank Heather.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I couldn't have done it without Heather, obviously, and it's always helpful too to kind of bounce ideas, you know, off of one another, and that's what I also would say makes a great colleague. And so it's been a pleasure working with you as well, and with Heather, and with Sherry. Is Sherry here? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Sherry's enjoying her lovely Saturday, and that's what we're all going to be doing shortly as well.
So let's give the students another round of applause. We always do that at the end because you're the ones who made the work and made it possible. And thank you for participating, and we'll look forward to next year, and hopefully we'll be in person, and stay in touch. Heather's going to be reaching out to folks with more information. Thanks everybody, and bye-bye.